Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Lee Spann.
All right, welcome back to the Stream Center for this week's episode of Run for Fun. We hope this show provides a really unique look at the sport of distance running because we're focused less on necessarily just getting faster and more on what you can do to make it more enjoyable. Because if you enjoy it, you keep doing it, and that's when it becomes a part of a healthy and fun lifestyle. I'm your host, Lee Spann. I'm a meteorologist at the WFLA TV station in Tampa, Florida. But I'm also an avid runner, and I've been running for about more than 13 years now. And we've had this show on for more than a year. We're in our second year now. So we hope we've drawn more people into our philosophy of running for fun and making it an enjoyable part of your life rather than always pushing it to the limit. Now, I said our philosophy. It's really Coach Maria's philosophy that I've just sort of adopted.
I can share.
Well.
I'm a sharer.
Thanks. So this is Coach Maria. So I've never really asked you, like, when did you, take on this philosophy of, making sure to run slowly and easy so much?
Well, it's funny. That's actually a very, very good question. I think I was told it for a long time by one of my coaches, and then in Memphis. And then when I moved to Boston, I was training for the Boston Marathon, and it was a really snowy winter, and I couldn't run fast. I had to run slow because it was very treacherous on the snow on the roads. And I was running like slower than I had ever run before on my easy days. And then doing my track workouts like on an indoor track or on a treadmill. And then I ran my fastest Boston that year. And I was like, maybe there is something to this. Yeah. So then I did a lot of research and I was like, oh yeah, there really is a lot to this.
So if you're interested in the philosophy, we've talk about it basically on we work it into just about every one of these shows. So go back and listen to other ones. And so today we're going to be talking about the importance of running cadence. And I also want to continue to keep everyone updated on our Strava group. So we have a WFLA Run for Fun Strava group. Strava is a free app that you can download on your phone and carry it with you when you go for a walk or for a run. And it records all of your stats for running, but we're using it as a meeting point, a social media, if you will. So that's why if you go to the groups and the clubs, you'll find the WFLA Run for Fun group, and y'all up to 247 members. And so then you can talk to other people, you can hear from Maria, you can hear from me, and it's just sort of a way to have sort of a virtual community because both Maria and I, one of the things we love most about running is the community, the people that you get to meet. So we're getting to use this.
Yeah. Excitingly enough, this is our 6th week this week. So we're halfway through. So if you want to jump in the group, you can still jump in. But it's, I put a workout in every week. So join the group.
So, and because we're halfway to the race that our group is going to run together. So we hope to see you out there. It's the BDR race, which is in Safety Harbor on January 20th. And again, people hire Maria to create ways for them to get ready for races or race plans and race training cycles. She is offering this to our Run for Fun groups so that everyone can try to train along together. So go to that, jump on in, and then January 20th, meet in Safety Harbor. We'll have Maria's tent, her on-track running tent will be out there.
And you can come and meet me. I'm so excited.
And we're training people for the 10K, but there's also a 5K. So you can just kind of go at your own, what you feel comfortable with.
And it's 3 days a week. So it's very manageable. So if you are worried about that, and even if you're training a little bit more and you're adding, that's fine. As long as you've been doing it before, that's fine. But if you are more of a beginner and you're worried about that, 3 days a week is all you need. So jump on in.
Yeah. And she just posted this week. So get ready. And this week, of course, we are talking about the importance of running cadence, as I mentioned. And so first of all, Maria, why don't you just tell people what cadence is? I mean, I think people have a general idea for sure.
So basically, when we run, every time we land on one foot, we're doing a one-legged squat, right? Which is why we have to make sure that we're very good with balance. So if you're doing strength training, you want to do a lot of balance work because we do typically between 170 to 190 cadence every time your foot hits the ground.
A minute.
A minute.
Right.
Yes. So if you're wondering what your cadence is, there's a couple ways you could do it. You can just count your steps for a minute. That can be very therapeutic, actually. Or you can get a metronome out and put your metronome on 180 and see if you can match it. If you're going a little slower, then you can speed it up. If you're going a little faster, you can kind of bring it down a little bit.
And you mentioned 180. So that is sort of the benchmark for what runners, is not perfect for everyone, but it is a good goal to have 180 beats or steps per minute, right? Is that sort of the general goal?
Well, we got to be careful.
Right.
There's never a general goal, but everybody's so unique. The reason we came up with 180 is because somebody was studying elite runners and they were counting elite runners' cadence, and most elite runners when they're racing are around 180. So of course, we want to mimic what the best of the best do. So we kind of came up with this 180 cadence. I think where the 180 cadence came to help us more is with form, because when we talk about form, the goal of form is to be efficient, right? Be efficient, not get injured, be able to go as fast as you can using the least amount of energy possible. So obviously, the better and more efficient our form is, the faster we'll be. So that is kind of important. But when it comes to 180 cadence, the thing I like about 180 is it's a very difficult cadence to not land under your hips. And form is kind of a controversial topic. Some people think you should change it. Other people think you don't. I'm in the school of we should correct your form the least amount possible, because it is like a fingerprint. It's kind of, everybody has a unique form. And if you change it, especially when you're older, you can really create a lot of problems where you don't need to have them. So the 180 cadence, more than the rotations, it makes sure that you're landing underneath your hips, which means you're using your glutes. And when you're using your glutes, you're the most efficient that you can possibly be running.
Well, and because a lot of people take long strides, and they're kicking sort of out in front, landing on their heel way out ahead of their body. So then you're going to take obviously a lot fewer steps because you're leaping basically and taking. So if you shorten that up, there's only way you're going to be able to shorten that is if you land back with your feet under your hips, which I think that changed everything about what I knew about running. Because it was always like, stretch that leg out and go as fast as you can. And when someone finally said, but you're only propelling yourself forward with a foot on with pushing off the ground. So you want to push off the ground as much as possible. You don't want to leap forward and be in the air. You're not pushing yourself forward anymore.
Absolutely. And I think the interesting part about it is people think, oh, stretch the leg out, step out in front of you, pull your body forward, but you're actually braking when you do that. You're actually braking because you kind of have to go back before you go forward. And our goal should be always to go forward. That's the most efficient way to do it. So, and I would argue that, I have runners that heel strike at 180 cadence under their hips. So it's not right. And this is a very strong misconception. People think heel striking is bad. Heel striking is not bad. Landing, having your stride be too long is actually detrimental. That's going to hurt you. It's going to cause a lot of high hamstring issues. It causes a lot of, you're just not going as fast. And who wants to not go as fast, right? So
with less effort, you want to go faster with less effort. You got to do it right.
I always tell people it's like, remember those scooters, those Razor scooters we used to ride when we were kids? I tell people to picture that when you're running. Like the push off is the exact motion that you're doing when you're running. If you pushed off in front of you on the scooter, that's not going to work very well, right?
You have to kind of lean back, and then
you have to lean back. And that's the thing with form that I would correct. That's probably the only thing I would correct in form, except for maybe slouching. I don't really love slouching. We should always stay upright and kind of picture somebody pulling us from right here in the chest when we're running. But everything, all of your motion from your legs should be behind you. Nothing in front of you.
And you think that if someone's changing their form, or they clearly if they've been kicking out in front, how hard is it to then just kind of bring that leg back in? It's not. I feel like it wouldn't be that. You're not changing much about everything except just shortening that stride up.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Just shorten your stride up. The problem is with that, when we start to shorten our stride and we start to do 180 cadence, people tend to run their easy runs too fast because you're moving your legs faster, right? So you kind of have to find the balance, and it's not a particular number. I would say if you're running your easy runs and you are counting your steps and it's around 160, you definitely want to bring your easy runs up closer to 170. My easy runs are 170 to 173-ish. And when I race, I'm always at 180, almost always. I've seen people go as high as, 200 cadence. I just think there gets a point where you're not efficient in the other way as well. Okay. So find that pace that really feels like that cadence that really feels like the effort is actually a little bit less when you're running, like on the track. Think about it. Like if you go to the track, is a great place to test your cadence because you don't have to stop at a stoplight. You don't have to, because anytime you stop and walk, that messes your cadence up like overall for your run. So if you're looking at your numbers from a Garmin perspective, like when I look at my clients' stuff online, I can see, 150, but they stopped and walked a little bit, or they're walking, that changes the cadence. So then you have to just look at particular parts of the run.
Because we're giving all these tips over the year now, more than a year. And so they're not always going to be happening at the same time. So if what we were, last week we talked about, zone 2 training. So you might have to walk to keep your heart rate that low. So then your cadence would be lower.
So your cadence is lower, and that's okay.
Right.
But you just want to take the parts that you're running. I can run 170 to 180 cadence no matter what pace I'm going. And I can do that. And trust me, I have trained myself to do this. This takes a lot of training and a lot of patience, but I can do a 170 cadence running at 14-minute pace. I have trained myself to be able to do that.
So that's
I did a whole
slow.
10K with, I did a whole 10K with one of my clients that way one time. You can do it. You just can't be lazy. And that's the hard part.
Do tell, what do you mean by that?
Like we get really lazy in our form when we're starting to go slower pace. And that's when injuries occur. And so it's not a cure-all to go 180 cadence. I'm not going to have any injuries. And I would argue that there are times when you should change the form of, if you're continually getting the same injury over and over again, you do probably need to go to a specialist to look at your form, because that's a pretty clear indication that something's off. But there are so many other things that you can do wrong that make injuries happen, most of which is running too fast all the time, running too fast, that medium pace that I hate, and then trying to do track workouts too fast. That makes you injured more than form. So just don't blame everything on form or cadence or shoes. Just kind of take a look at the whole picture and say, am I getting the same injury over and over again? Because I hear a lot of things. Remember, we've talked about in other podcasts, stories we tell ourselves. We have to be really careful to be like, oh, I got injured because this form happened, or because we don't really know how we get injured every time. Sometimes we do, but it's usually a combination of a few things.
And it goes right back to the checklist. Why,
the checklist.
You go back there like,
favorite.
Am I eating enough? Am I sleeping enough? Are my shoes right? Is
my iron low? If my iron is low, your form is going to be off.
Yes, it was.
You can't lift. You can't lift your feet as high. You can't.
You fall down more.
So if you're really low iron, which nobody thinks it makes that big of a deal, but it really does. Like if your legs are too tired to pick up, you're not going to be able to hit 180 cadence, right? So, and if your body's used to that, and then all of a sudden you're too tired, you're expending a lot more energy, and you're at risk of more injury. You're more risk at more injury if you're not eating enough for the same reason. If you're not putting enough food into your body to fuel it properly, you can't expend the correct amount of energy. So there's a lot of things that people think are form related that are actually have nothing to do with form, but kind of they do. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you're getting hurt because the form is bad, but it's not bad because you're being lazy. It's because you haven't slept enough, or you haven't eaten enough, or your iron is low, or you're running too hard all the time and you're too tired to do things correctly. So just do the checklist before you like change everything else, because I would say 9 times out of 10, it's under eating or low iron.
Yep.
9 times out of 10 is making your form bad.
So I do want to go back to the fact that, a 170 pace, a 170 cadence, running much slower than you normally run. I'm not saying that 14 minutes is slow. I'm just saying that's slower than you normally run. How do you hit the ground that many times, and do you take tinier little steps and not go faster? Like how did you train yourself?
I always think light on your feet. That's always what I think. Because the lighter you are on your feet, the easier it is to rotate your legs. Which is also why low iron makes that difficult. Yes. But light on your feet. And then see, I'm a cheater because I was a music major in college. So I am like, I am a metronome myself.
Okay.
I just
you can feel
trained
the beat.
Music my whole life. So I can keep a beat. And I have tried to train runners with a metronome that don't keep a beat, and it is maddening. Like, if you can't keep a beat, don't take a metronome out. It's just going to confuse you. But if you can keep a beat, which is funny, a lot of runners are able to keep a beat. That's like a little inside thing. Good runners are able to keep a beat. That's why a lot of musicians are good runners. But there's a lot of songs you can buy on Spotify now that are 180 cadence.
They are designed to be 180.
They're designed to run at 180 cadence. So you can listen to those. If you can keep a beat, listen to those and try to match the beat with your feet. That can be very helpful. And honestly, it will take you, I think it's like 60 hours before it becomes a habit. Okay. 60 hours of running, which is a lot. So you have to do it pretty much every run. And now you don't have to do it for the whole run. One of my runners puts his metronome on at the end of his runs
when you're tired
for 5 minutes every single, and he still does it, even though he has a great cadence now and he doesn't need to do it anymore, but he's just gotten in the habit of doing that. So he'll put it on for the last 5 minutes of his run. That's good if you're like finding yourself getting tired and lazy. Put the metronome on at the end of your run and start trying to hit that cadence. That'll train you to do it. And then once you've done it for, 60 hours, like 3 months, 4 months, you'll start to notice you'll just do it naturally. And then you're not thinking about it. And honestly, the goal in running is to not think about it and just do it, right? Because the overthinking really screws our head. So try not to overthink it if you're trying to do your cadence. Either put it on at the end of your run, or a lot of times I will have people put a metronome on for the 5 minutes before their run and just march in place at that speed on the metronome before you start running.
Get it in your muscle, get it in your thought.
Yeah, get it in your muscle memory, and then just move forward gently. Because that's the thing. Like if you're just moving forward gently, going slower and keeping your easy pace is really just about push off. It's not about cadence. So you just don't push off as much on the back end of your stride. So you can just move forward, and it might look really silly at first, but then it starts to feel really good because it's easier on your joints. The other caveat that I have about that is that typically when we do that, people end up on their toes running. And we don't want to be up on our toes running. It looks really pretty, but it's not efficient to be a toe runner either. There are people that run on their toes, and they run on their toes well. I still would argue you're using your calves, you're not using your glutes. So if you want to be a more efficient runner, you want to use the biggest muscle in your body, which is your glute, and not your calf. So I would work on making that heel come down and then come back up. We're not meant to be toe runners either.
And we talked about, we mentioned at the beginning, the heel strike. So you're saying even if you, so if you're coming, as long as you're coming down right underneath, like I feel like it would be very hard to come down on your toe right underneath. You'd almost,
A lot of people do.
A lot of tendency to fall forward, I would think.
And a lot of people, it's funny. I've watched a lot of people mess with their cadence and then they end up being a toe runner and they end up losing power. So they actually get slower because now you're just using your calf, and your calf muscle is very small. So, I mean, some of us have bigger, I have good, strong calves, but still not strong enough to propel myself for a long distance.
And not as big as the glutes.
As my glutes. Yeah. Like you really want to use that powerful glute, and that keeps you, uninjured too, your glutes. That guy in that picture that you have up, he's using his glutes. You see that stride?
Yeah.
He's pushing off in the back. He is landing in front of his foot, but he hasn't really landed yet, I don't think, right?
Yeah, it looks like he's still in the air a little bit. But
he's still in the air. So we'll give him credit that he hasn't landed yet.
He's gonna bring his body forward, and he'll land right underneath. But yes, it's clearly that he's kicking back.
Yeah.
Which is, again, a lot of these things I wish someone had told me. When I picked up running 13 plus years ago, it was like I've run my whole life as a kid running around. Like, what else do I need to know? And then it's like, there's small things you just learn, and it makes the whole experience just a little bit better.
And there's a couple of things you can do, like, because I talk about form very little. I talk about cadence very little, and mostly because anytime, a lot of us are type A, and a lot of times if I say something, people overcorrect, and I'm like, the last thing I need is for you to overcorrect. And then we're overthinking about anything. So the best ways to correct these sorts of things are with drills. Use the metronome, do your A skips and your B skips before you, and we should do a whole podcast on, running drills to do and what we use them for. But do drills, because drills are just meant, I make my track people do drills before every track practice. I pick the drills that are the most important. And sometimes people are like, how come we don't do more drills? I'm like, guys, because I get you once a week and I want you to do the same drills so much so that it just becomes natural to do them. B skip is like the most important drill to me for cadence, because it's getting your foot underneath your hip as quickly as you can. And everybody's terrible at it. And the only way to get good at it is to do it for, again, 60 hours. So we do the same thing every single week to try to get our muscle memory to do the same thing. And then we're not overthinking it, right? We're just correcting it in track practice, and nobody really knows what I'm doing. Except for now they do, but okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Nobody's listening. It's just me and you.
We'll just pretend.
Yes. And so, we talk about running form, but we also talk about the reduce an injury. So what would someone be doing that could cause a nagging injury with their form that you would say, okay, now this we need to start working on it? Again, don't change it overnight, but what would be something that you say that you see a lot?
I would say the thing I see the most is like high hamstring issues, like where
I got that.
Yeah. And that's typically from overstriding. Yeah. Overstriding during speed workouts, typically, I mean, I struggle with that even. I have to constantly remind myself, shorten your stride, faster steps, not length, because I'm short too. So I'm like, but I just want to catch up. But it's not the way to catch up. Like you really just have to shorten your stride and move your legs faster. But that's a big injury. There's not a whole lot of things. I mean, sometimes back injuries can come from people that sit back. I call it the sitting back in their chair when they're running. They like kind of sit their whole body back and their legs are out in front of them. Have you ever seen anybody run like that?
I don't think so. That seems really hard.
It's probably just because I notice these things. Like a lot of things I see, like when your legs swinging out in the back, that's from tight glutes. You
mean swinging like out to the side?
Yeah, out to the side. That happens a lot, but that's not something you want to correct other than foam rolling and strength. And I think when it comes to form, strength training strength training your weaknesses does more than correcting your form.
Mm.
So if you see that your leg is swinging out in the back, or a lot of people, because we drive with that right foot, have a lot of problems with their right side because we keep our foot kind of like this when we're driving.
Yeah.
So it's like we constantly have that in the back, and it's just from it's a tight glute from driving. So we have to kind of recorrect that. I've had a couple runners correct that. But
you're
not
doing that with strength training
training,
drills.
not drills, not form correction. So the only form that I like to correct really is slouching and that kind of thing. Or I'll never forget, I brought my grandmother when she was like 94 to track practice, and because she just liked to watch what I do. And so I'd sit her up on the track, and she, I don't know if you've ever watched Dale run, but my client Dale has like the most beautiful form ever. Like, he has the most beautiful forward lean I've ever seen. And he's actually a heel striker. So I like to use him as an example a lot because he heel strikes, but he's very efficient and he's very fast. And my grandmother was like, can you tell that man can you tell him to stand up straight? And I'm like, no, he's got the most perfect forward lean from the ankles. That's very hard to do
rather than a slouch.
Yeah, a slouch and a lean are very different. Like, if you're slouching from the hips, I see a lot of people like curve their arms in, and like so if your cadence is good, but you're slouching and you're like, bending at the hip, I'm going to change that before I change anything else, because that you're stopping yourself from being able to breathe properly when you're caved in. And form is just, our bodies are really amazing. We really learn how to adapt. And that's part of the process. The more we run, the more we adapt, the better our form gets.
Because you would think like, oh, now it's easier. It's actually because you've gotten more efficient. Not only are you getting, you're getting healthier and your endurance is growing, but it may start to feel more fun and more efficient because you are running in the right. You're not using excess energy, and you're also not getting hurt. And that's sort of the whole thing of, it's not fun when you're hurt. It's not running isn't fun anymore.
And honestly, I don't know if you remember the Vibram shoes. Remember when those Vibram shoes came out? They came out
toe
because
shoes. Yes.
Yeah. They came out because they wanted everybody running on their
not heel strap, not
right. You cannot, when you're running barefoot, run on your heels.
Right.
You can't do it.
It'll hurt too much.
It hurts too much.
Yep.
So the whole theory behind that was, okay, if we have a shoe that is more minimal and acts like barefoot, then our cadence is naturally going to be better because we have to land under our hips. Thought process was good, but they forgot that typically you have to build up to that. And then the roads are pavement. And then people started getting stress fractures a lot. So we're like, okay, well, maybe. So they did change the shoes and made, the heel drop a little lower so that pushed us forward a little bit more. So there's constant change in our industry on, how to better our shoes and how to better our form. And a lot of it's wrapped around this 170 to 180 cadence. And that's a cool thing. We just need to remember not to obsess about it, because, if we obsess about it, we can really mess ourselves up.
And one more quick question. I'm assuming there's like a metronome app you can get. So it's in your ear if you're using headphones, right? Okay. Just making sure.
Actually, some of the Garmins have a metronome in them.
So will you feel it? That's on our watch.
I think you can set it up. I've never done it on my Garmin, but I do know some of my runners have it set up to, it will either beep at you or vibrate.
Oh, that's very helpful.
I think it's way more fun to go on Spotify and look up a 180 cadence. That's a little bit more fun. Or put one song at the end of your 45-minute run and try to match the beat. That's kind of a little bit more fun.
I'm going to need just the beat. I'm not going to be able to do it from a song. So I know that I'm not going to be able to find that beat.
Oh, really? You can't do it from a song?
No, I think I'm really just going to need the that's all I'm going to be able to handle.
That's okay. Whatever you got to do to make it work. actually you have pretty good cadence, so I don't really worry about you too much. But everybody's a little different.
And I didn't actually when I like a long time ago, again, 13 years ago, all it took was someone telling me that you were the only time that you're getting forward motion is if you're pushing off. So like, I just thought, well, that just when things make sense to me, my body my body just does it. And it's like, okay, it can't be out in front. It has to be here. And then I really changed it pretty quickly just because it just made so much sense to me. And again, never heard it, never thought about it. Being a child, you just ran, you just did what, And
we naturally do it because a lot of times when we're running as kids, we're running barefoot. So one thing you can do is like at the end of a track practice, if you have grass or turf that you can run on, take your shoes off and do some strides on the turf when you're tired. That's what we're doing. Like when I throw strides in, and you'll see in the Strava group, I put strides at the end of an easy run. That's a form drill. It's more for form than anything. It just gets you to get your legs moving quicker when you're used to being easy and kind of lazy. The strides is a form drill. People are like, what am I supposed to do with this workout? I'm like, that's not a workout. That's just trying to get you to be a little bit more efficient in your cadence. That's all it is. And I throw them into a lot of easy runs.
I don't mind them. It does because it does kind of break up that last, because they usually put them in the last mile. So it's like, I've been out there sort of zoned out for 5 miles, and now I'm like, okay, I get 25 seconds.
Yeah, it's fun. It is fun. And the cool thing about strides is there's like no wrong way to do it, except for like if you're stretching out your stride too much. But like it depends on the day. Like if you're tired, you don't go as fast. And if you're feeling a little better, you go a little faster. It's just kind of like a fun thing to do at the end of your workout. And
you'll sometimes put in there, focus on pushing back. Because it is like, oh, I want to go fast. You immediately start stretching that front leg out. So it's like just a reminder, yes, you're going to go a little faster, but you're still going to push back off the ground.
The scooter analogy really helps people. People can, I don't know what it is about scooters, but everybody relates to a scooter.
Yeah, because you're already, you can't really stick your foot out if you're standing right at the handlebars.
Yeah, it's not going to work, right? Yeah, it doesn't work.
All right, so we have today's coach's drill. Where Maria gets a minute to talk about anything she wants, but she has to keep it to at least under a minute. So today we're talking about if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Please, please, please don't get on the internet and read about form and then decide, actually, don't get on the internet and read anything and just go do it. Please. There's so many things that go into form, and we don't just get hurt. Like we talked about today, we don't just get hurt from form. We don't get hurt from shoes. So we can be in the wrong shoe and bad things can happen, but it's not the shoe's fault. It's typically the form in the shoes. So don't overthink things. If you're not hurt all the time, don't get on the internet and decide you're going to change something because you're not getting fast quick enough. That's typically what happens. Like, oh, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. I'm in a plateau and I want to fix something. So cadence is it. Don't do that. Don't go find problems where we don't have problems, and make sure the story that you're telling yourself is the right story. Right?
That's right. It's real easy to, people do it in all walks of life.
They
say like, oh, well, this influencer said this, and now I'm gonna only eat whatever the thing is, or I'm gonna make a whiteboard or whatever it is that's the in thing. But if you're already accomplishing your goals and already eating well, don't change things.
I mean, trust me, I am the queen of rabbit holes. I spent like the first 15 years of my running probably going down rabbit holes, and I've made all of the wrong choices, guys. So I'm only telling you this. So from experience of rabbit holes I've gone down and really messed myself up from, I'm at the point now where I don't have to do that anymore because I've learned enough from them. So just take my learning experience and don't go down the rabbit holes. It's not worth it. It's even if it may work for just a short period of time, the damage that you can cause, like on all sorts of walks. Like there's so many things right now on the internet that are like fat adapted training and like the quick fixes and go on this diet to fix this. And switch your cadence and switch your form. And there's always these things that are coming out online. Ask a professional before you decide to go change something. Make sure you're not just, doing, people say Dr. Google. Don't do Dr. Coach either.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a coach for you on Strava. Go to our WFLA Run for Fun, ask the question, and it's probably going to be
the questions.
Yes.
I really love answering questions. I would rather ask a question, have somebody ask me a question, than to be afraid to ask me a question and go down a rabbit hole and get in trouble. Like, that's no fun to have to build yourself out of a hole, even with form, because it can really mess up your efficiency. And we don't want to do that. We don't. All
right, everybody. Thank you. Again, go to our Strava, WFLA Run for Fun. We'll see you there. We'll talk to you there. And we hope to see you on January 20th. And in the meantime, have some great runs out there, Maria.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.